Hey guys, how you doing? This is Manga, etc. And I'm here today to bring the review for One Piece episode 1016. Now, this episode really just has two focus points. And the first one that I'm going to talk about is the Sanji stuff, because that's the exciting stuff, at least personally for me. And then we'll talk about what the fandom has dubbed Roof Piece, the start of Roof Piece. And what technically last week's episode was the start of Roof Piece, but I digress. So, with Sanji, we know where we left him off last time. He's trapped in a paradise slash hell kind of scenario. You know how it is already. You know how Sanji is. He's all about the women. He will never do anything to harm a woman. He loves his women, as it should be. And he's conflicted. He knows what he should be doing, but at the same time, he has his own wants and needs, if you know what I mean. So this part episode, I guess, is supposed to be humorous, but I feel like because we know Sanji is the ladies' man already, we know how he's going to react. We don't need to watch this bit of the episode per se to know how it's gonna roll out. So it's not as humorous as it could be, or maybe Odo's trying to land it to be, because we know Sanji's mentality already. But the most important thing to come out of this bit of the episode is that we find out that Black Maria specifically wants Nico Robin. Do we know what for? But will we find out? 100%. So yeah, that's everything I'm going to say about on that bit of the episode. For now, I'm going to move on to Roof Piece. Okay, so the first thing to come out as the episode starts is that we find out that the thing is, I'm looking more specifically at Kid. I think Trafalgar doesn't know about it as well, but more specifically at Kid. Kid doesn't know about the Ryu Haki. And now, when this rolled around in the manga, this was where I became, or it might have been the start of where I became, because I can't remember exactly when it was solidified to me, the start of my disappointment for Kid. And I'll explain why. Ever since, for me personally, ever since back when the pre-time skip in the three captains vs Marine fight, at the very end of that fight where you see Luffy and Kid, Luffy does a gear 3 attack and Kid does one of his metal giant arm attacks, and it was from that moment onwards to up until you done in one country, just in case you was confused. I felt like the betrayal between Kid and Luffy was like said to be equal. They were both equal in strength. Like I said, from that very moment with the gear 3 punching it, all up until you done. And I was expecting, not because I think people was expecting Kid to have the Ryu Haki before you done or something along those lines, but I personally was expecting for Kid to have picked it up, got hints of it during you done, seeing Luffy practicing doing it. That's what, because I'd assumed that's what he was doing, like in between dunks and stuff. He saw Luffy attempting this thing and he would have been like, what's this kind of thing? And then off screen, when he goes off to do his own thing before the festival starts, he picks it up then. But this episode basically solidifies that he's just seen it for the first time today and he didn't know nothing about it. And if Kid doesn't have this key, it's very unlikely that when it comes to strength, he can match Luffy. So, disappointment for Kid there. After that, we have Kaido basically get up off the floor and he's like, yo, what is going on with Luffy right now? Not too long ago, I one-shot this dude. Now he's coming back looking kind of scary. And I can understand Kaido's mentality at that point, because it's true. The growth of power between Luffy at the beginning of Wano to right now is actually very ridiculous, because I could understand Kaido's concern in this scenario. But then this bit of this episode goes on to show us just about everybody who Kaido feels like could take him or just give him a good fight. And in that 5 people was Gold Roger, Whitebeard, Rocks, Odin, and the one person who's still alive to this day, Shanks. Now that's interesting because a certain two other Yonko kind of don't see as a threat. And now Blackbeard, I can understand. He's still up and coming, and I don't think at this present moment in time, in anime and manga, that Blackbeard would be able to give Kaido a good fight. I think he will get stronger because obviously he's got to match Luffy at some point. But I don't think at this point in moment in time he'd be able to give Kaido a good fight. But what caught more interest in me is why Big Mom isn't in that category of giving Kaido a top fight, because I would have thought that they were relatively close. But I guess this is Oda's way of solidifying to us, the audience, that Kaido is over Big Mom. So after that we get into the fight, and the fight starts off pretty damn nice. We find out that Zoro, of all people, stole Kinemon's fire cutting style off screen, and now I don't know how I feel about that. I can't remember how I felt about it when I read it in the manga, but I don't know how I feel about it now. Because obviously it was done off screen, and he said he stole it, so Kinemon didn't teach it to him, and he did show interest in it within Punk Hazard. That's kind of like the only hint towards him ever going to steal it. I guess we'll take it. It's not a big thing at the end of the day. Like the fire, being able to cut fire, not a big deal at the end of the day. We've seen Zoro cut steel, and we know that that's got to do with knowing the breath of all things. So him cutting fire, what do you do, mate? Yeah, what do you do? Another thing about the Ruffy stuff within this episode is that moment where you have Luffy, Kid, and Law arguing, and then they play that game of chicken. I found that bit hilarious when it happened in the manga, but even more so in the anime because of the camera snapping moments. That I think that made it even more hilarious. But it was good to see that as well. We have Zoro and Killer. Zoro acknowledges the fact that Killer is by his true name. I'm forgetting his true name. And in this moment, and I find it interesting as well, I don't believe it, but as a man, you got to be confident in your ability. What Killer says to Zoro, like, yo, if I had my Punisher weapons back then, it would have been a different story. I don't think so, because even in that fight, Zoro didn't go all out. There was no Usher. So Zoro did not go all out in that fight, and he was handicapped because he was caught lacking. He was caught lacking, so he was handicapped. But yeah, in all honesty, I don't think Zoro and Killer are equal in strength in any sense. And again, that's a shame as well, because I felt like the betrayal was there, like it was all set up, and it just didn't follow suit. That's another thing, betrayal wise, that Kid and Luffy had in common. They both have vice captains who are in the Novas, so I'd have thought, yeah, them two would be equal, and then Killer and Zoro would have been equal as well, but I just didn't see it. But yeah. So Killer and Zoro take a pop shot, well, not a pop shot, but they take a shot at Kaido, and Zoro himself says the cut was too shallow, but I don't even think they cut Kaido at all because there was no blood. So he did feel the attack, but they're not hitting home quite yet. They still got a ways to go if they want to beat Kaido, and obviously Big Mom is there present as well. But the last thing to mention about this episode was that they are rearing to go. We have Zoro saying, yo, Luffy, we've got two commanders, we've got two Yonko here, you need to be serious. And at the end of the episode, we see the three captains stance up Law with Room. When you put Law next to Luffy and Kid when they've powered up. Obviously, Gear 4 for Luffy. Kid's doing this whole Mecha Megazord thing, which I'm not the biggest fan of. But when you put those two things next to Law, who's only just got room, it makes Law look more lackluster than he really is. But yeah, that's everything I've got to say about this episode. The episode was paced fairly well. It had two splits, and although I feel like the Sanji stuff slows down a bit, slows down the pacing of the episode. It still needs to happen that way. At some point, we could have had a whole episode of Roof Piece, but that middle portion would have been filler, and that probably would have ruined it. So the episode is as good as it could be, I guess. So for those reasons, I'll give it a 3-star rating. Like always, guys, mostly for your thoughts and opinions. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. But most importantly, take care. Have a nice day.